Hello, this is Wmpyr. Here with another book. This is Don Pentecost. Put 'em down, take 'em out. Knife fighting techniques from Folsom Prison. So this is a another legendary knife combat book, and this is the part. This is a chapter where he talks about defense, and this part is where he goes into principles of trapping. And before we start thinking Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do, let me go real quick into a trap is a glorified slap that can remain in contact with the opponent's limb. It is used to fend off the attacker's thrusts. Trapping is done quickly and hard, usually with the lead hand from the knife defense stance. A trap is not to be confused with a hold. Do not attempt to hold the knife or arm of the attacker. An experienced fighter will retract the knife hand instantly. Okay, so I think that is an extremely important thing. So what he's calling here trapping is, he says it's a glorified slap. Okay, and because it's a glorified slap, it could remain in contact with the opponent's limbs, but he also quickly addresses that you don't want to try to grab their arm, because on the retraction they can cut you. So personally, this is something that I've trained with my own students, and of course in my case my own style, which is comes from the Escrima. So training in the Filipino martial arts, this is an area that I was very interested in particular in knife defense. So when I told my students, hey, I want you to just attack me, and don't tell me when and what. Just do it. Just try to get me like a game. Try to catch me off guard and surprise me. I tell them that, right? And when they do go for the attack, and I am successful at defense, what came out was pretty much what Mr. Don Pentecost is talking about here, which is this glorified slap. So back in the day, I didn't really think of it as a slap. I thought of it as a swat, which is, we're talking about the same thing. And so I called it the swat. And this was back in 2006. This is, for me, it came from the force-to-force block. So seeing the force-to-force block, or should I say learning it back in 1990, and then since then, I got to the point where I was doing martial arts for a long time. So I was like, okay, it's time where I start actually taking teaching seriously. So when I did started teaching, and I started holding the tie mitts, the tie pads, the forearm shields for my students, that's when it really dawned to me. I was like, I'm doing the force-to-force block here. It's Muay Thai kickboxing, basic Muay Thai kickboxing that I was teaching my students, so that they could learn, how to defend against strikes, or learn how to do strikes, both of those. And as I was holding the focus mitts, I really realized, like, wow, this is directly connected to the force-to-force block, which is an Escrima technique that I learned using single stick. So my training partner attacks me with single stick, and I use single stick to defend, and that's the force-to-force block. And that was taught as a technique, not as a, use it for sparring or anything like that. I mean, of course, we were taught techniques and we were told, hey, use them in sparring, but what comes out in sparring was always very, very limited. What we learned was we'd learn a lot more. We learned all kinds of disarms, all kinds of lock flows, standing joint lock techniques, all kinds of takedowns. But then when you spar, like most of that didn't come out for many reasons. We can't so you can't just immediately discard it and say, there, Escrima doesn't work. No, that's like for a very closed-minded person that doesn't want to really study and put in the time. They'll make that kind of conclusion. But you know, and some of these answers, they don't come quick, or maybe they won't come at all. That's just the truth. But 3 decades into this, I don't. I could tell you I don't have all the answers, but some things have become much, much more clear to me over the years. And that was this thing right here, where he's talking about the trap, which is a glorified slap. This thing, we're talking about reflex. So it's not so much a cognitive thought where I'm setting up my opponent and then they come in with an attack and then boom, I do it. No, it's more so like it works with reflex. So like I told you guys, when my students caught me off guard and they came at me with this knife and I was able to defend, instinctively, this is what came out. I didn't know. It wasn't pre-planned. I had no idea what was going to come out, if anything was going to come out. I didn't know if it was going to be Heaven 6. I didn't know if it was going to be grappling. I didn't know what, but this is what came out. Okay. The only thing I knew was that my student had a training knife and they were going to attack me with it. I just didn't know when or what technique exactly. But yeah, this came out consistently, not just once or twice. This is what comes out naturally. So I am a big believer in this, what he's calling the glorified slap. I'm glad that he's showing it. And I've been explaining it to you guys, the force-to-force block, for many, many years now. And I know a lot of people, the way that I was teaching it at first was grabbing the stick with both hands, and they don't like that, whatever. Look, it comes from actual testing on my part, and you don't have to believe that. You don't. So, and you shouldn't. What I always tell people is test it out yourself. If you cannot replicate what I'm teaching, then there's something wrong. I tested it and came to this, I wouldn't say conclusion. It's not a conclusion, but it is at least a evolving, progressing solution. So I came to this solution, and you should be able to duplicate that. If not, there's something weird. The test was manipulated, or this guy just made it up. So to me, I'm a very strong believer in that, and so to see, something that I know I've put in the work with my students, and I've tested it, and sometimes we got hurt, sometimes fingers got caught. Sometimes I got jabbed in the ribs real hard. Yeah, that's all the price. You put in the blood, sweat, and tears, and so I could tell you confidently that the force-to-force, but I'm not going to say it works every time, but it's a very, very good technique. This glorified slap that he's talking about is a good one. So I do highly recommend it. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.